Rick Horrow, we always talk about sports. We talk a little bit about entertainment. And in this context, we're talking about both because we have somebody that can transcend the trillion-dollar sports business and the trillion and plus dollar entertainment business, and who better than Nickelodeon, and who better than Keith Dawkins, who is the EVP of Nicktoons and other entities under Nickelodeon. How are you, Keith?
I'm well. How are you? Well, that's a fabulous introduction.
Well, it's a fabulous introduction because there are a lot of people that deal with both but don't understand how to cut across both of these two. So kind of give us a quick perspective on basically what you do and why it impacts both of these disciplines.
Well, listen, so what I do in a day-to-day, I'm in charge, like you said, the day-to-day kind of operations of these Nicktoons, Team Nick, and kind of other entities here at Nickelodeon, Nick Sports, the Splat, which is kind of our millennial-facing initiative. But at the end of the day, one of the similarities between us and the sports world is that we have an end user, the consumer, that we think about entertaining with a great product. So whether that's Thundermans, iCarly, or some of our other great initiatives that we have here at Nickelodeon, that's not too dissimilar from NFC Championship game and AFC Championship game. NFL thinks about putting a great product on the field. That's just one example. We think about putting a great product on all the different screens that our audience reaches. And so there's an entertainment quality to that. And the interesting thing now in terms of the intersection with the sports folks, we have a great kid and family audience. That's the lifeblood of our business. And they're in the business of how do they create a lifelong, I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan. I jumped in that bandwagon, when I was 7 years old, and that's who they're trying to reach. How do they get a young Keith Dawkins at 7 years old to become a Dallas Cowboy fan? That means I'm an NFL fan. I'm not a fan of something else. So that's the sweet spot there in that intersection. We both know how to market. We both know how to entertain, and we have an audience that the sports guys are going, kids and families, we need to really reach and court kind of at young ages.
Keith Dawkins, who understands the metrics of all of this, and I guess that's my next question for a business audience. The metrics of reaching a specifically targeted sports audience have to be complicated enough, but when you layer on the entertainment audience as well, evolving social media, second screens, A, do they pay you enough, and B, how do you do it all?
Well, what's interesting is, listen, the world was simpler when we just pretended that, a Nickelodeon kid only likes our stuff, and maybe our cartoon, or maybe our competitor is just the people who live in our competitive set. But once we got our own way, same thing with the NFL, we realized, wait a minute, a Nickelodeon kid also loves LeBron James, also loves Serena Williams, and also loves Des Bryant. They're watching all of these things. So that's where the kind of marriage of the two, this sports and entertainment, sports is entertainment. We live in an entertainment space day in, day out. That marriage kind of makes sense. It also allows us to, speaking for Nickelodeon, to reach kids off of our own screens and platforms by partnering up with the NASCARs, by partnering up with the Major League Baseball, the PGAs of the world. We're able to reach kids and families in the places where our screens aren't reaching them, normally. So that's great for us from a marketing standpoint. And the leagues and the athletes love us because we're bringing great kid and family content into their world. So that makes a NASCAR experience when you go to see this great NASCAR race, like we partnered up with them last Mother's Day weekend and created the SpongeBob 400. NASCAR's like, this is fantastic. Kids came, they already loved NASCAR, the adults already loved NASCAR, and then they came and wow, there was the whole racetrack looked like SpongeBob. The winning trophy was SpongeBob. Multiple cars in the race were skinned, a Sandy Cheeks car, a Patrick car, a SpongeBob car. It was a win-win for everyone, right? So that's the interesting dynamic of bringing the best of both worlds together.
Interesting dynamic, but a different kind of metrics, because I assume that the traditional ROI and who's watching and who's buying product has to be suspended a little bit because your home run is a, making this up, 9-year-old kid who puts the pressure on the parents to buy, A, and B, it's important for that sport to know that that kid is in the middle of the sport for when they're 18 or 19, they become corporate and product buying public. So it's a little bit of a different measuring stick or not?
No, I mean, listen, for us, we concentrate on making great product content. We're a content company for our consumer. So if we're doing that right, from preschool to 6 to 11 and up, if we're doing that, then we're able to bring the love of that product and the love of the Nickelodeon brand into our partners' hands and these great kind of sports partnerships with them. And that resonates with the audience that's there. They'll come back to our screens. We'll be able to monetize in the way that we need to. They would have had a great experience via the partnership that we would have had with an MLB, an NFL, or NASCAR, which allows those particular brands, their audience, to say, oh my gosh, I had this great weekend, all-star weekend, MLB. Nickelodeon was there, plus my favorite guy, Bryce Harper was there, and I'm a lifelong MLB fan because of that relationship. So I think it can be a win-win for everyone.
Your favorite guy, Bryce Harper, it just did a whole deal with New Era Hat Company. He's now become the kind of de facto ambassador for baseball in a lot of different contexts. So kudos to him. We'll just see if your favorite Nationals are doing as well as your favorite Bryce Harper. Neither here nor there. We don't want you to give us baseball predictions. We want you to talk next, if you don't mind, about the Super Bowl 50. You talked about the partnership with the NFL. Give us some sense of the significant calendar of events you've got planned from Super Bowl Monday all the way through the game.
Listen, we've had a multi-year relationship with the NFL that just continues to grow year in, year out. It is extended from them being a great pro-social partner with our Worldwide Day of Play initiative many years back, and they continue to be a part of that, to content-driven relationships on our Nicktoons channel with NFL Rush Zone, which was an animated multi-season franchise that we did with them. And through those relationships, we've been able to kind of escalate our coverage of Super Bowl up through now Super Bowl 50. So we're really excited to have this kind of ongoing relationship with them where we'll be on the ground, Nickelodeon at Super Bowl week. Starting February 1st, we'll be there straight through the 8th, and we'll be in all of their big three footprints, those being NFL Experience, which is kind of just, if you haven't been there, I would say to people it's kind of like a interactive museum of fun of all things NFL. I mean, you can run the 40-yard dash and see what your 40 time is to look at great Super Bowl trophies. We'll be at the opening night concert, which kind of kicks everything off that week, and we'll be part of what they're now calling opening night, but which is traditionally their media day, where all the teams come out and kind of talk about, what their predictions are, and wacky questions get asked of them and some serious questions get asked of them. So we'll be bringing our Nickelodeon kind of IP there. You'll see things that come out of our 90s Nickelodeon content covers. We'll have a actual set inside the NFL Experience that'll be kind of interactive and fun. We'll do a lot of production from there. We'll do digital social takeovers from there. We'll be bringing Nick Talent down there, Kel Mitchell and others, Pick Boy on Media Day, some of our stars from some of our other shows. And then, of course, we co-produce with these guys, the NFL Flag Championship, which is a great culmination of flag football happening around the country, and there's a big kind of like a national champion event that goes co-ed and also through multiple age groups. And we produce that at the NFL Experience with each other. It's an awesome event, and then we'll broadcast it on Nickelodeon and Nicktoons.
You listen to Keith Dawkins, and you understand the intensity that he's got. He's been involved in the Harvard Business School management program, UCLA Anderson Grad School, et cetera, but has been with Nickelodeon since 2003 as the VP and manager of Nicktoons. How has the company and industry evolved since your first day on the job?
I'll use my family as an example to get into it. I have a 14-year-old and an 11-year-old. So slide it back to 2003 when I started with the company. My oldest, his preschool world was largely on the screen. If he flipped on Dora, it was on the big linear screen. My youngest was the beginning of maybe the first thing he would go to would be a tablet device to consume preschool. The digital social change in the kids' world in that short period of time, the proliferation of things like YouTube or others has just been staggering. So that's the shift, the screens that they are watching things on and consuming content on, which means you also have more competition out there for their kind of attention. But more screens are just different pipes that the content's flowing through. We're still a content company. So at the end of the day, it's about if we make the stuff that is really resonating with our audience on the screen in which they are consuming it, we're still positioned to be successful. But that's the big difference that I've noticed. All the different screens, the pipes that our audience is consuming content on, which means we have to think differently in terms of how we use all those pipes, long form, short form, how do we market, programming strategies, understanding the nuance of how the audience consumes differently through all those different pipes. So that's been the big change. What to your question.
Keith Dawkins, big guy at Nickelodeon. Interesting concept and dynamic as far as second screen. Do you see, and using your family as an example, do you see in the not-too-distant future when smartphones and tablets actually outstrip the number of traditional TV sets, screens in a household, that the Nickelodeon alum or the Nickelodeon viewer will actually be responsible in many ways for changing the viewing habits of the parents? How does that dynamic work in the next 5-10 years?
Well, I'll say a couple things to that. One, media consumption changing for the audience is not a new idea, right? I mean, from radio to TV where there was a couple channels, to TV with more channels, to cable, to digital suites, right, and the list goes on, to podcast. That's the nature from hieroglyphics, right? That's the nature of this kind of media consumption landscape. It changes, but again, not to be redundant, what hasn't changed, there's always been great storytelling that is pushed down through those different formats. So I think to that piece, that's where people who are storytellers are poised to be successful. What's interesting, though, for Nickelodeon is Nickelodeon's an old, mature company now, so what we're finding is there's a generation of Nickelodeon fans, people who grew up on Nickelodeon, who are now 30, who are now 27, who are now 31, who have their own children. Wow, they can be kind of a co-marketer of the value of Nickelodeon brand, like in their own homes, almost like a validator. We even see it back to the sports questions you're asking with the partnerships. The athletes, Cam Newton and these guys who are 25 years old, these guys grew up on Nickelodeon, literally grew up on SpongeBob, literally grew up on iCarly. So that's fascinating in terms of, so we're actually in this interesting sweet spot of the oldest end of the audience, where these 25 to 30-something-year-olds, right, and we resonate with them in a certain way, and that allows us to do powerful things with our IP and our library and our brand, and many of them also have kids, so that becomes a powerful partnership in the relationship that we have in our homes. So I actually think we're poised to have a really kind of dynamic relationship both as storytellers and also with the maturity of our brand with this kid and family audience going forward, in spite of the changes of how they're consuming the content.
Yeah, finally going forward, you react to this that you really effectively may have the ability to influence what sports are viewed by kids today and the legitimate fans and parents of the future because of the viewing habits and the partnerships and relationships you have with entities like NASCAR and the NFL today. Right? Maybe?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't want to sit here and be so bold and arrogant, yet I do believe in the power of the Nickelodeon brand, not just as a person working here, but now having been here long enough to understand its impact on, again, consumers we have many people who work here right now who grew up on Nickelodeon who are young 20-somethings, and they speak to the power of the brand for them growing up. And then with our partners, I also believe in the power of brands like the NFL. So, it's interesting that the NFL is coming up on its 50th Super Bowl, right? I mean, the Super Bowl is the granddaddy of them all, and the 50th is a big idea. We're coming up on our kind of 25th anniversary of the history of our Nicktoons, the launch of our Nicktoons characters. That's kind of a powerful double thing to kind of bring together, right? Again, it speaks to the power and the longevity and the reach of the NFL brand, the power and the longevity and the reach of kind of a Nickelodeon brand. And so, yeah, there's great opportunities then in being able to bring those together. Same holds true for our other great sports league partners and the impact that it can have on the minds of kids and families at the young ages.
You don't have to be arrogant about it. I can just wax philosophical and positive about the influence that you guys have had on the business. My final question is, if I put on sufficient weight, can I get in one of those SpongeBob or SquarePants costumes over time? That might be my next employment. Is that okay with you?
Sure. I thought you were going to challenge me to like a duel or something. When you said getting sufficient, I was like, you're fighting weight?
Yeah, fighting weight. That's what I need. All I need is I need to be on one of those mascot deals for the next SpongeBob SquarePants 400 when you decide to deploy. Keith Dawkins, really, really appreciate it. We'll speak soon. Rick Horrow, talk to you in a minute.